poetry performance called Unveiling of the Soul. So I'm going to be starting with Act 1, which is the past. A lost shadow. In the shadowed past, I wandered aimlessly amidst the withering trees in a world so gray and treeless. Winter had found its way to me, a bitter, icy rain. The sun had set once more in my soul's endless pain. I am lost, I cried, as the night enveloped my soul, no compass in my heart, no north star to make me whole. The garden of my existence, barren and overgrown, identity shrouded in darkness, my heart made of stone. Find me, I pleaded to the whispers of the wind, but the answer, it seemed, was lost in the chaos of all my sin. My young seedling, withering, a fragile, wilting flower, in the desolate garden of despair, where hope had lost its power. The moon, a distant memory, hidden behind the clouds, a reflection of my anguish, my identity wrapped in shrouds. I yearned to see its light, to uncover who I'd been, but in the heart of despair, my soul was trapped within. In the bleak of this chapter, emotions weighed me down. As I searched for meaning in the night, I'd often drown. The earth, my anchor, became a heavy chain, tethering me to sadness as I endured the endless rain. In the depths of despair, I longed for a change of tide, to break free from this darkness where my spirit would confide. The sun, though absent, held the promise of a new day, a glimmer of hope in my heart, a path to find my way. As I look back upon those times of sorrow and despair, I see the journey of self-discovery, the roots I laid bare. Though the past was tempest, with shadows deep and wide, it led me to the present, where my true self couldn't hide. In the garden of existence, I unearthed my lost soul, reclaimed my identity, once hidden, now whole. Though the past was a winter, a night without end, I found the strength to bloom, to heal, to transcend. In the depths of despair. In the depths of despair, I once did reside, a world cloaked in shadows where my spirit would hide. The stars refused to twinkle, the moon held its sigh, and as I wandered in darkness, wondering why, the forest of my heart was tangled and dense, identity concealed behind a heavy-lidded fence. But in this abyss, I began to see a faint spark, a glimmer of hope, a light in the dark. Though the trees stood silent, like ancient guards of yore, their roots whispered secrets of strengths to explore. I listened to their stories as they cradled my pain, and I found the courage to face my darkness, my forever bane. The sun, a distant memory, beyond the horizon's bend, but I knew it still existed, around the river's end. With each step toward the dawn, toward a brighter day, I unearthed my true self, and sadness began to sway. For in the depths of despair, I found my own grace, a journey of self-discovery in that quiet, sacred place. With tears as my ink, I rewrote my life story, from sorrow to strength, from despair to glory. The Silent Symphony. In the silent symphony of my soul's dark refrain, I danced through the night where sorrow held its reign. The stars hid their faces, the moon refused to sing, and I, in the void, felt the weight of everything. As I wandered lost in a world so cold, identity obscured, and a story left untold, but the rustling leaves, they whispered secrets to me, of growth and rebirth, finding what's meant to be. The river of tears flowed as a testament to my pain, carving a path through my heart like a river through the plain. In its gentle embrace, I found solace and release as I ventured deeper into the shadows, seeking my inner peace. The sun, though veiled, was never truly gone, just obscured by the clouds, awaiting the dawn. With every heartbeat, a new chapter would begin, and the symphony of my soul would find its way to sing. In the silent symphony, my sadness found its voice, a prelude to a transformation, a conscious choice. Through darkness and despair, I discovered my own song, and in the depths of my soul, I learned where I truly belong. The laminate of the withered leaf. In the embrace of nature, I once stood tall, a vibrant leaf on life's tree, not fearing the fall. But time's river flowed, as it always does, and I found myself adrift, no longer part of the chorus. The water, a silent witness to my journey's course, carved canyons in my soul with an endless, remorseless force. As I meandered along the currents of fate, I felt the weight of existence, a heavy, ponderous freight. The leaves around me rustled, a chorus of whispering friends, as I danced through life's seasons, waiting for my amends. But as the years slipped by and my colors began to fade, I realized my destiny and the circle life had made. For, in the end, we all must fall, like rain on thirsty earth, decomposing back to the soil, our final humble rebirth. In the quiet of the forest, I found solace and release, as I embraced my fate and let go of this lease. The earth, my mother, my creator, welcomed me with care as I returned to her arms, released from this worldly wear and tear. In the stillness of the woods, I found my eternal grace as I decomposed back to the earth in this sacred final place. The water, the earth, the leaves and the trees, a symphony of my existence as eternal as the seas. In the cycle of life, I found my purpose anew as I became one with nature in my final adieu. So let my journey be a reminder as you stand so bold that life is a river and we are all leaves of gold. In the end, we all must fall to nature's endless mirth, decomposing back to the earth, returning to our Creator. Is this it? The tan paint that surrounds me, along with the dried out air that holds too much? To give water to life that lives within my very habitual, precariously, I'm forgotten far too often. The fabric that bears these very feet have seen more than the stars can speak of. Is this it? Amidst the constellations, my journey unfolds, the stardust tales and mysteries untold. But within the walls, I question my place. Is this the end or a fresh cosmic embrace? Is this it, the echoes of a forgotten time, where life's rhythm fades and dreams begin to chime? This thick paint and the air, they hold their secrets tight, as I yearn to water the seeds of my cosmic flight. The fabric beneath my wandering feet carries tolls of joy, sorrow, and the bittersweet, more than stars can whisper in their silent gleam. In this tapestry of life, is this the final dream? Amidst the vast cosmos, I search for my rhyme, as galaxies collide, marking the passage of time. But deep within, I question my fate. Is this it, or a new beginning? Something great? Is this it? The universe is vast and wide, yet sometimes I feel like I'm confined. In the familiar paint, the stale air I breathe, can I break free? Will I ever truly leave? The fabric that has seen my weary tread knows the stories of where my heart has led. More than the stars can tell in their cosmic song, in this moment of uncertainty, I ponder and long. Amid the celestial dance, I pause and reflect on the journey ahead, the paths will intersect. For this life, this world, it's just a part of the script. Is this it, or a prelude to the destiny that's always been unzipped? 3:17 a.m. 3:17 a.m., and I'm questioning my existence again. The stream of hope has disappeared and left me lost, but I still feel like I'm drowning. The flowers have started to wither, and the air grows thick. My existence remains a mystery. An out-of-body experience has taken over the person I once knew, pushed into the past. I've lost them. Discovering new meaning for existence has led me to the unknown, growing, blooming, living. Living for the near future, living for the existence that has yet to be discovered. I plead for forgiveness. A never-ending tide takes me into its arms, the unknown. Gasping for my last breath before I fade into the sea, the sky has never seemed so blue. The clouds fog my vision, and the silence creeps upon me. The deep blue sea has taken it all. Deeper than the sea, larger than the sky, my body's paralyzed. The cascading waves wash upon the tips of my fingers, reconnected to the sea that once set me free. Take me to the beginning of time, teach me all that there is to learn. And Act 2 is present. My young seedling. In the garden of existence, we seek to find our place, a journey of self-discovery, a quest to know our face. Amidst the roots of culture, we sow our unique seed. In the fertile soil of identity, we find what we truly need. My young seedling, for you shall grow into a bright flower. Unfurl your petals with pride. Embrace your own power. The sun above, a guiding star, with its golden touch, illuminates the path within, where you'll find so much. The river of time flows, with stories untold, carving the landscapes of our lives, making us bold. As we navigate the currents in this world's grand parade, we find the strength within us as our true selves cascade. Oh, the wind, a whisper of secrets, carries our desires. It's a breeze of acceptance that fuels our inner fires. Embrace the gusts of change as they swirl and twirl. You will grow, my young flower, into a vibrant pearl. Through seasons of self-discovery, like the ancient oak, we shed our old leaves and unveil the truths we invoke. In the mirror's reflection, in the depths of our gaze, we find the beauty of identity in so many different ways. The moon, a silver mirror, reflects our soul's endeavor. With phases of understanding, it waxes and wanes forever. In the stillness of its light, we uncover who we are, a canvas of emotions, a tapestry, a shining star. As the earth cradles our roots and the sigh sets us free, in the embrace of our essence, we find our own decree. In the symphony of self-discovery, we are nature's song, a testament to our identity where we truly belong. My young seedling, you're a part of this grand scheme. You're a unique creation, like a star in a cosmic dream. In the garden of existence, we bloom and we thrive, discovering our identity as long as we're alive. I don't want to exist, I want to live. I have discovered everything, but have not seen the world outside of these walls. I have found joy within the sun, but she always sets whenever I need her to shine the most. I have felt so salient and seen, but I am nothing but a shadow in these vast crowds. What has this instance held but forgiveness at the very least? Be the bearer of the blade. Precariously, through it all, you have found yourself amidst the sun. She beams her light so gracefully onto my ever so fragile soul. Mother, I call out. Her light floods my eyes the same way she lights up my heart. I'm here, she says to me. Discover all that you have been hidden away from, my young seedling, for you shall grow. Bloom. The bears and the beasts. The bears and the beasts, always lurking in the shadows, following me wherever I may travel. A mother's nurturing love is all a child needs, or so I thought. Did you know sometimes a mother bear eats their young, and hamsters do the same thing? A mother doesn't always nurture her young. Sometimes we're led down the wrong path, through what seems to be an endless tunnel to darkness. The boar's sharp, rapid tusks hung right above our dining room table, its gaze carved into my mind. I can feel her young yearning for their mother, to be nurtured. I've been wounded once, twice, even a third time, but it's hard to learn when there's no example to follow along. I tend to my overgrown garden, pulling myself from the weeds that have grown around me. I'm lost in the music that plays in my head, the mother bears lurking in the dark, the boars and the piglets stay searching. Maybe we're the bears and the beasts after all. Hooked. I find myself coming apart in the big blue sea. My soul is pouring itself out into the ocean, freeing itself from this body, finding a new host. Hooked. This weight has taken me in every way imaginable. Why is it so much easier to shield my eyes from the despair that occurs at my very own fingertips than to face the reality of the big blue sea? Hooked. One small taste was all that my soul needed to know that there was no turning back. My voice disappears into the abyss as I plead out for help. Water fills my lungs as I catch a glimpse of a plane flying overhead, the possibility to soar through the sky above all else. Hooked. How can one feel so heavy as all the weight escapes from their body? In the blink of an eye, I find myself closer and closer to my fate, a path of freedom, joy, and love. Hooked. I reel myself in from the chaos that is this big blue sea. I'm standing on the ledge of my fate, hooked on that feeling, yearning for something more. I found it within myself. Hooked. The big blue sea takes us all in the end. The better place. I watch as his life flees from his own eyes, trying to make the great escape to the better place. These white cotton sheets hold so much more than the eyes can see. Memories filled with laughter, shouted voices pleading for forgiveness, the forever guilt. If only he knew how great he was, the light that shined from within his heart, the joy that cascaded from his smile. Perhaps this life wasn't meant for him. The need to find a fate to call his own was slipping from his fingertips. For now, this is a symbol of time for the better place. What are you made of? The skin that keeps me oh so warm and safe, or perhaps the blood that runs through my veins. It's all the same in the end, isn't it? We're all just here to roam the earth until our hourglass runs out of time. Try breathing air. A sharp inhale inwards, and a release occurs within seconds. I feel the weight of the world being lifted from my soul. Try breathing water. An urge to swim to the surface has fled my system, and I'm left staring at the big blue sky. As water fills my lungs, one last gasp before I meet the great blue sea. Try breathing fire. An irresistible feeling of rage washes over me. This undying need for disaster has lit a fire deep within. The smoke trails through my body as it slowly fades into the distance. Try breathing earth. Reconnected with the earth that once created my very existence, amongst the forest and the river, I found my home. But what are we made of? A present blossoming. In the garden of the present, I'm still young, a sprightly seedling, with a song unsung. Nurtured by the morning dew, the golden sun embrace, I'm in the midst of growing at such a vibrant pace. Amidst the blossoms and the rustling leaves, I sway with the breeze, like a heart that believes. In the symphony of nature, the wisdom of the trees, a chorus of birds, and the buzzing of busy bees. My young one, you are still blooming, they croon. You'll find yourself soon under the golden moon. As the world unfurls its mysteries, I take each stride. In the meadows of today, I find myself and my joyous pride. With every sunrise, a new chapter begins, a dance of discovery as life weaves and spins. In the garden of the present, I'm nurtured by the day, growing and blooming, finding my very own way. Among the bees and the birds, I'll soon take flight, with the wisdom of nature, my guiding light. In the ever-changing landscape, I'm found, blossoming the present on life's fertile ground. Act 3, Future. Where does it all start? Let me tell you a story from far ago, or maybe even something near. We start as nothing but a small seed. Given water and sunlight to nurture our growth, we begin to blossom, bloom. I've been on this path for what seems to be an eternity now, trying to make my way to the top. I've picked myself up time and time again, brushing off the dust from my knees. Voices of doubt fill my head every time I shut my eyes. It seems so far, but I'm so eager for it, yearning. Take a piece of sea glass. Where does it all start? A broken shard of glass takes time to turn into a beautiful piece of treasure, a fragment of my very time. The sea carries it into its ever-so-loving arms until it's ready to be released back into the wild, to be found, discovered. So as you start like a tiny seed, you'll eventually find yourself in full bloom, bees pollinating around you, summer sun shining against your face. The crisp summer air, it's okay to be doubtful. We all are. But remain hopeful. As the seasons come and go, winter turns to spring, withered trees begin to bloom, we grow alongside them, ever-changing for better or for worse. The stars. Dancing in the sun, the molecules and atoms prance around our bodies, their cosmic trance. Intertwined, they form a forever chance. For metamorphosis to take its course, a cosmic ballet, no final remorse. I always wondered, could I open up my soul and watch the sun on a cosmic stroll? Pour itself out, a radiant display, freeing itself from this vessel of clay. The body withers, the spirit seeks flight, in the boundless day and in all endless nights. My fingertips tingle with fiery passion, roaming the earth in a boundless fashion, seeking a hostess, a nurturing place, for metamorphosis, a cosmic embrace. In the grand theater of the universe's design, we're but stardust in a cosmic line, dancing in the sun's warm embrace, transcending the boundaries of time and space. With each step we take, we're reborn anew, a journey of the soul, both strange and true. In this radiant, eternal cosmic dance, we found our place, our profound romance. I am you, and you are me. In the future, I aspire to be the sun, the moon, the stars, the galaxy, and all of eternity, a tapestry of cosmic dreams, you see? How can I become all that I long to be? For you, I'd split myself in two halves of one, a love so true. In unity, our destinies align. Together, as one, our fates have been entwined. I am you, and you are me. Accepting this truth, our destiny, my purpose found in your embrace. In the future, love's eternal grace. You cradle planets with your fingertips as the galaxy spills its heart. It ripples and drips. Do you comprehend the power you hold? In the future's embrace, the universe unfolds. I am but a star, perhaps lost, it's true. In this vast cosmos where dreams renew, but in your love, I find my place. In the future's boundless cosmic space, a journey into tomorrow, we shall chart. Two souls intertwined, never apart. As galaxies collide and stars alight, in the future's promise, our love takes flight. We, the architects of destiny's design, in this future, our hearts combine. My mind is an open library. The words float around my head, dancing softly alongside one another. Past memories and interactions that have been filled into my mind forever. My mind is an open library to all, to anything that may hold my attention. To read is not to analyze writing for its conceptual matter, but to open your mind to a new creative perspective. To daydream is not to zone out of your current state, but to create an imaginative environment for your ideas to grow, flourish, bloom. Absorbing words of knowledge with each breath I take, relearning the learned and unlearning the taught. Reading may be the only thing that has taught me to absorb, to take it in, see what's around me, stand still for a moment, take a glance at what's been forgotten. For the most important tool we have is our own little library. My story. The way I view my story may be different than the way you see it, and that's okay. We all have our own perspective on things, a lens from within. You may associate my story with sadness, another may associate it with joy. There's no real right or wrong here. Everyone perceives things in different forms, but I've learned the importance of sharing my story, our story. To be confined in a cage is to be silenced from your story, your voice. I share my story, my life, the hardship and the good, because I know it's not just me. As dark as the sky may seem, some days I know that the sun is waiting upon my arrival to greet me with gratitude and kindness. As I sit in my dark room, my blanket crumpled up into my waist, clutching onto my sheets for dear life, I wonder if anyone else has met a fate like my own. I'm reminded that sharing my story allows others to come to terms with their own, an acceptance of community and support. A shy and introverted soul has no means to fly. They may soar through the sky, fly amongst the pretty little birds, but if only they realize the true power of their story, the power of our story. Blossoming self. In the garden of my soul, I sought to find a fragile seed, myself, so undefined. Nurtured by the rain, the sun's gentle kiss, a journey of self-discovery, all pure in bliss. I watched as the petals of identity unfurled, each layer a story, a truth to be untold. Roots delving deep, seeking life's sweet embrace. My young seedling, you are growing with such grace. Through seasons of doubt and storms of despair, I nurtured my essence with tender loving care. With every challenge, a new bud appear. In the garden of self, I had no final fear. And now, as I gaze into the future's bright light, I see a tapestry of colors, vibrant and right. My identity, a bloom in life's grand bouquet. In the garden of my soul, I finally found my way. The path unfolding. I wandered through the forest of self-discovery, a tangle of vines, a wild, mysterious journey. In the depths of my being, I sought to explore the roots of my essence, my soul's very core. Amidst the thickest, I found a young seedling, a fragile identity, quietly building. Nurtured by the whispers of the wind and the rain, in the labyrinth of growth, I felt no pain. The vines that once bound me began to part, revealing the path to my own beating heart. With each step I took, a new bloom rose. In the midst of this forest, I found my prize. My young seedling, you are growing, I said. Look at how beautiful you became, I pled. As the future unfolds, like the petals of a flower, I embrace my identity with each passing hour. In this vast, verdant forest, I found my way, a journey of self-discovery, both night and day. As I walk into the future, my identity in Tao, like a flourishing garden, I continue to grow. And so that concludes my 3 acts. So now I'm going to do a little interactive segment with the audience called Bloom and Share. So I'm going to move around the audience now and give everyone a little seed. And so I'm just going to ask for you guys to keep that seed cupped in your hands and just take a few moments to think of any kind of memory, person, or place that brings you joy. And then we'll come back to share. Cliche, I know. But yeah, I lived in Halifax 2 years ago, and it's always great coming back here. There's such a great sense of community here. And yeah, I'm just really happy to be back with such a loving community. And so I'll open up the floor to anyone. You don't have to share, but feel free to share if you like. I'm glad. Okay, awesome. Thank you guys. I really appreciate it. Excited to see everyone else's acts.
Hi, my name is Vi. I'm a triple Sagittarius. That's all you need to know about me. And yes, we will fight. I promise. So today, if you've seen my performances, maybe you've seen me with like heels and hips and like no wigs because I don't like wigs. But you see me like point to the other stage and cry a lot and like dramatically saunter to the other side of the stage and lip sync Florence and the Machine song. I'm not going to do that today. Not that I don't absolutely live my full fantasy when listening to Florence and the Machine, especially if you're on the ferry and it's getting kind of cloudy out and then the wind picks up. Oh. But today we're going to start reading some things I've actually written because I was told to share the things I've written with people and my family threatened me if I didn't. I had a music stand here earlier for the sound check, but now it's gone. My hero. Can we all get a round of applause for the Khyber for throwing on these amazing events? That's fine right there, yeah. I can move the mic. I'm also really loud, so you might be able to just hear me. Yeah. It's okay, I have years of stage training and bingo hall training. I was a bingo caller for 3 years. Yes, that's how I know it goes B 1 to 15, I 16 to 30, N 31 to 45. Don't get me started. Okay. End scene. And so I want to preface this with saying that while I think I'm kind of good at writing, it is not a process that brings me joy. The speed at which my fingers clumsily form the letter or hunt around the keyboard is not terribly efficient. And my brain is lost in a haze of rapid fire thoughts with no priority system. For me, the act of writing is laborious, as I'm ultimately trying to make legible my own thinking, which does not easily translate to the realm of language, because I think in pictures and concepts at a freight train pace with bicycle brakes. The realm of literacy is based in a colonizer's language, and I'm hesitant to say that I've developed a deep love for the power of words. I'm fortunate enough to also be shaped by those intrinsic networks throughout my own life due to the nature of growing up within my community. And here, within those relationships, the colonizer's language reaches its limitations and its ability to express. From this vantage, writing exists as a record of sound. It is a simplification and archive of complex communication. There is no temporal element involved in the consumption of these words. Beyond the natural limits of light, literacy, comprehension, there is no stutter, there is no vocal fry, there is no gentle hum or whisper. With writing, there's no sound. There can be no echo, no reverberation of sound perceptible through our embodied forms and beyond what are the limitations. You cannot hear the breath that supports each syllable. You cannot hear the choice of silence over sound or a moment of deeper recognition. The ways I know the world most openly are found in those spaces in between words, in just the space of a breath. And these words seem to be effortless. There is no rupture or disharmony in my tonal quality to signify that a physical limit has been reached, or the fact that these took 2 years to write. And there's a whole world of expression that comes with rendered text. It is not a language I know most fluently, and I struggle to appreciate its beauty and my continued experiences of attempting to communicate effectively using language that has led me to think that all of these words are really just deceptively glamorous. Writing at this pace is just a constant process of re-editing, rethinking, phrasing, word use, while retaining the necessary grammar rules and, God forbid, formatting, that these words struggle to get themselves to the page at all. It is in my struggles communicating that I do not find joy in the written word, for what is not required is not a series of disjointed half-thoughts or tangential explorations, but a growing sense of personal frustration at the rate in which I'm producing, because it's not a reflection of the process that expands beyond this page into emergency waiting rooms, Zoom calls, from my own bed, simultaneously trying to placate two very affectionate cats. And mostly, writing just kind of feels like a sense of betrayal. Not just with the language, but as an act of masking all of my own ways of knowing, to privilege the written word. See, in the short ancestry documents I've witnessed carried in within the Catholic Church's archives in my community, you don't have to go all the way back to the Trinity signing to find out that illiteracy was common for my family until only the most recent generations. The written word also reaches its limit in what I'm hoping to convey through the writing itself. This speaks to my own positionality as being actively geographically removed from my home community for nearly a decade. That growing sense of alienation over the COVID-19 pandemic compounded. And the lasting effects from this experience are unknowable and will be felt for decades to come. I lose something in this process of expression, where intangible and contextual knowledge that engages both realms in physical, metaphysical, becomes lost in a sea of words. What I'm attempting to carry within these pages, what I'm attempting to convey, are the stories that I carry with me. And this is the way in which I know and locate myself, the ways I think it important. I attach a form familiar to academia, and I offer the same line as poem. It is self-referential to express the limits of acceptability, because it intentionally seeks to remove that element of hierarchy to privilege and value lateral process and form. Here, I want to speak without speaking, and may in fact be speaking this very phrase right now, but I can't tell you about the life it lives without having lived it first. That there may be, I do not do this to offer critique, encourage prescription, but instead to invoke an idea of generosity in our own selves that is only relevant to the perspective of the reader or the listener. That these ideas, they exist in a world of lived transformation. They're affected by social conditions, environment, experience. They reject the notion that preservation that the archive of settler and institutional knowledge insist upon. And so through invoking this generosity, I also insist upon a notion of complexity, as expressed by Cherokee scholar Daniel Heath Justice, who says, quote, "Single stories are shallow, but easily mobilized to support inequity, bigotry, and self-interest. Complexity challenges manipulation. It's why the most cynical politicians and talking heads go out of their way to evade complexity and opt for the soundbite, or, when that fails, excessive volume. Yet even in more exclusive contexts that insist upon singularity over multiplicity, the privileged category of the moment is always in flux. It's inevitable. As the complications of the world and the myriad relations evade these simplistic categories, stories find their way freely to disturb the status quo and to liberate people to express all the rich, bewildering diversity of their lived experiences." End quote. And so it is my hope in invoking this kind of generosity that I also acknowledge my own limitations, my own humanity. I'm afraid and uncertain because there's nobody in my family who's done something like this before. I'm an advocate for my own experience within this system while simultaneously requiring analysis of my experience before any advocacy can take place. I cannot speak for voices not present. Instead, what I can offer is a limited insight to a contextually based personal knowledge. Hold your breath. Hold mine too. Give your breath back when you pick yours up. I'll do the same for you until we can't anymore. Just take turns when we can. Remember, we're breathing for two. In the space where you hold me against all reason, and for eternity in that moment, I will trust you. Take time and calm your restless hearts and hungry minds. Breathe intentionally. Focus on the act of drawing breath and how that air enters your body. Feel your lungs take it in. Breathe out. Feel the air empty softly from your lungs. Repeat. Each time, notice something different. The feeling, the sound, the transition of oxygen into your bloodstream that rushes throughout your body. Feel your body in space. Notice the breath of other living beings who share this space. And allow yourself, if for an instant, to simply be. To recognize that you are. Embrace silence. For with silence comes retrospection. Listen without the intent to respond. Comprehension will not be tested. Simply breathe. Do nothing else but breathe. For all of our responsibilities and an ever-changing life awaits, but for the space of one breath, if you can give yourself that freedom, let that be your only responsibility, and breathe. Give yourself freedom between breaths and return to that space as often as you need. Smudging. To smudge is quite simply to pray. In order to be able to smudge, you must have a source of ignition and some medicine in which to smudge. Smudging can be performed anywhere. There's no prescribed right way to smudge. It is the relationship between fire and medicine that the smoke of smudge is born. Sometimes the fire is a lighter, used for lighting a cigarette. Other times a match or an open stove element. Sometimes, if you're really good, the inside of a toaster. The medicine is always one of the 4 sacred plants: cedar, tobacco, most commonly sage or sweetgrass, because each plant embodies its own teaching and gifts. And it's in the relationship to that medicine that we begin with the understanding that we ourselves cannot live without the generosity of plant and animal people. And so perhaps you harvested the plant yourself and placed yourself in the world where you asked permission to harvest this medicine. And by your own hands has it come from the living world to be with you. Perhaps it was gifted to you. The plant was brought out of this living world through the labor of another, and now rests with you, carrying that history of intention and exchange within that relationship. The medicine lights, the smoke plumes upwards, and the scent of the medicine rushes through our bodies. It spins in the very air we take in, as that oxygen is transported to every area of our being from the inside out. The smudge smoke dissipates, releasing its form to be unbound and unraveled. And this medicine pulls us deeper into the nature of our relationships and reminds us that the nature of being alive means that we are not alone. Part of the responsibility of being a human is to take in sustenance that we cannot provide for ourselves. In this way, we are intrinsically connected to every aspect of life, for our continuation requires the sacrifice of another. Unlike plant folks, we cannot make our food from sunlight or water. We are in a process of constantly receiving and processing. And what is not good for us must be cleansed or it will stagnate. This includes not just our physical form, but every aspect we recognize in our own personhood. Through a balance of physical, intellectual, spiritual, and emotional selves, smudge serves as a foundational grounding point in which to cleanse your non-physical self. To smudge is to cleanse yourself of that psychic residue that comes with living, and to engage in another process at hand with good intent and an open heart unbound by our own burdens. It's also the embodied essence of preparation. Before any ceremony, before any group gathering or feast, we smudge together. In this act of getting ready, do we acknowledge the space we are moving into, how it was made, shaped, and maintained? And so without the ability to smudge, what then is being communicated but knowledge that you are not considered, that no place will be made for you here? A ritual for getting ready. So in place of medicine and fire, maybe these words can serve as an ethereal memory, that these sounds wash over your being and pull you into your own essence, that you who hear this are alive right now, though it was not always that way. Through connected networks, histories of entangled bodies punctuated by global events, continual movement through time, and the infinitesimal possibility that a chance meeting between genetic cells came together to produce you, and you were brought into this living world. And through time and space, you changed from the form that could not live without the care of others. You couldn't lift your head. Through time, you developed the ability to sustain yourself, or you didn't. Through all of that time and the events you've experienced, they've all led you here, to this point on a page. And some of these events, you have not been able to assert any sort of influence to determine the outcome. Most you will not have had any control. So across that journey, we learn and we add to our own story as we begin to understand the path of our lives. And for each person, this momentum is different. Yet all of those individual paths have wound to this moment. See where you have come and give yourself a pause to reflect. Ask yourself how you got here. When you understand where you're coming from, ask yourself where you're going. In this life, all we have is time, and no one knows how much time they have left. Time spent doing this is time invested away from other aspects of your life that could benefit from your time and attention. And for this, I'm grateful for your time. So let us begin by letting go of the burdens we carry through life and take this moment to reprieve. Let us be grateful that everything has happened, for everybody who has influenced the ability for this possibility to exist. Can we carry that same generosity and gratitude to focus the work we are about to undertake? Thread the needle, wind the bobbin, dress the loom, pre-wash your fabric, moisturize, primer before foundation. The act of being ready is not complete without time. Test the ability and mobility of your body in whatever control you can muster. Stretch what you can, and if it hurts, stop. Exercise gratitude to a form that carries you through movement, time, and space. You are bound but not owned by each other. So your body communicates to you. Listen to what your body is saying. Can you understand the language? Because you're the only person you must live with your entire life. And that relationship may not be the best, trust me, I know. But that love you show, that can be a bit of rebellion too. Feel the rhythm of your heartbeat. Feel air entering and leaving your body with every breath. Tune your instrument. Warm up your voice. Set the stage. Putter. Procrastinate. Clean. Walk away. Take inventory of what your environment is actually saying to you. Tend to the present and ever-changing state of your responsibilities. Come back. Pick up where you left off or start again. Make a ritual of starting so that you become an expert in knowing exactly how to start. Breathe. Close your eyes. Listen to that longtime companion. Your body is another version of yourself, but not under your control. Instead, they are open to suggestions. You've shared all experience together. You grew together, bound to each other. Recognize that agency. Tend to the relationship because you only have life to spend together. Quote, what's in a name? That which we call a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. So Romeo would, were he not Romeo called, retain that dear perfection which he owes. Without that title, Romeo doth that name, and for that name which is no part of thee, take all myself. Act 2, Scene 2, Romeo and Juliet. Bonjour. Vida bangdigo. Vai Jones dishnakas. Bawating donjiba. Main gandodem. My name is Vi Jones, though it hasn't always been that way. I'm from Bawating, also called the Rapids. I am a registered Garden River Band member since birth. My father married a non-Indigenous woman, so my genetic lineage is mixed Anishinaabe and Euro-settler, largely Irish and French descent. I was raised on reserve from birth until my parents separated at the age of 8, and then on through high school and college, I moved back and forth, living with my family on reserve in various rental units across the closest city of Sault Ste. Marie. These experiences entangle and intersect throughout time and space with experiences of gender, sexuality, disability, and take on new forms as the relationships between these experiences of being othered by settler society overlap through time. This is exacerbated through the pervasive and toxic narrative of innate dysfunction that Cree scholar Daniel Heath Justice refers to as a narrative of deficiency. Quote, many of the stories about Indigenous people are toxic. And to my mind, the most corrosive of all of these is the story of Indigenous deficiency. We've all heard this story in one form or another. And according to this story, Indigenous peoples are in a state of, whoa, that's not how math works. Thank God for page numbers. I fixed it. Whew. Where was I? Toxic stories. According to this story, Indigenous people are in a state of constant lack of morals, laws, culture, restraint, language, ambition, hygiene, desire, love. This story presumes that we're all broken by addiction or dangerously promiscuous, according to pleasure-hating puritanical concepts of bodily propriety. It insists that we have a lack of responsibility, a lack of self-control, a lack of dignity. It claims that we can't take care of our children or families or ourselves because of constitutional absences in our character, biology, or intellect. And it goes even further. Rather than see lower life expectancy, employment, education rates, and higher rates of homelessness, substance abuse, and suicide being rooted in generations of sustained and intentional colonial assaults on all aspects of our lives and identities, we're blamed for our supposed lack of basic decency. Depressed? In despair? Can't be due to centuries of sustained oppressive social structures and racism. Must be our supposed lack of mental fitness. Come from a supportive and generally stable family without many of the overt effects of wounding? Don't assume it has anything to do with your family's good luck or the strength of your traditions or your particular capacity to overcome major obstacles. No, it must be due to successful assimilation and a gradual diminishment of quote-unquote pure Indigenous influence. In this story, every stumble is seen as evidence of our innate deficiency, while any success is also read as proof of our diminishment. Even our strengths are presented as evidence of our inadequacy, end quote. So these complex intersections require me to engage across these levels of experience as a border crosser. A border crosser is a quote, person moving in and out of borders constructed around coordinates of difference and power. They're not only physical borders, they're cultural borders, historically constructed and socially organized within the maps, rules, and regulations that limit and enable particular identities, individual capacities, and social forms. Students cross over borders of meaning, maps of knowledge, and social relations, and values that are increasingly being negotiated and rewritten as the codes and regulations which organize them become destabilized and reshaped, end quote. So it's stories like this of Indigenous deficiency that have long entangled with experiences of identities pushed to the margins by settler frames of reference. These stories operate as a social framework to alienate and eliminate Indigenous presence through enforcement and enfranchisement. This is a story whose toxicity infects our own self-perceptions, and experiences of trauma are incorporated into the operating social logic of the settler state. In telling stories from a personal perspective, I engaged generations of Anishinaabe storytelling tradition and embodied practice, and I try to do this with a deliberate intent as an act of my own responsibility to my relations, my community, and my survival. So my responsibility in sharing these stories also comes with a requirement to transform them. While I talk at length about how the narrative of deficiency is conditioned, I also invite opportunity for contemplation and introspection to reject and transform this narrative, to identify and articulate the elements involved in caused and harmed and how they are perceived through each social lens, then try to transform these stories, maybe to heal some of the way these stories have wounded us. And this comes at a time where artificial intelligence and its ethical implications and complications have come to the forefront in the world of art and entertainment. Settler society has reached a point of complete human removal from art creation. In developing ways to increase efficiency and momentum towards the fallacy of economic prosperity, the sociocultural structures of capitalism have called into question the very value of art and of artists. Instead, I posit an alternative structure where human value is not something that can be ranked through social metrics or money, but in the well-being of community. It is a premise that experiences of deviation from cultural norms are not necessarily punitive in nature. Instead, opening opportunity for creative and nuanced understanding. It is a world where my experiences are not only valued, but all aspects of my being are incorporated and understood as a result of cause and effect. And there might actually be a world out there who actively desires my presence, my participation. Quilting stories. Quote, "The truth about stories is that's all we are." End quote. Thomas King. I've chosen to reflect on Thomas King's most recognized quote from his 2003 Massey lecture series to ground this undertaking because I believe in the truth at the heart of his words. When I was a child, I was partial to stories about magic. There was something intriguing in the ability explored across books, movies, video games, and yet the ability to spontaneously manifest elements of imagination into tangible reality. Through magic, the nature of reality could be transmuted. It had been this nebulous source for so many imaginations to conceptually transcend the limits of our very understanding. And so as a child, as somebody who was not very strong and not a very good fighter, I thought that I could just beat my brother up if I had magic. And it was through this urge to experience magic that I became close with art. Here was a way I could make magic in the world and the concepts that lived in my head and my heart that couldn't be expressed through words alone. This could reconcile the life I wanted to live while firmly rooting it in the imaginary and giving it form. This magic would come full circle as I discovered my own entry into storytelling. Affinity for art in compulsory education had led me to take my first drama class in high school, and I was hooked. I think it was there, in the theaters of my youth, where I finally could connect to others and learn how to tell stories that made people who watched them laugh and cry and get swept up in the fantasy of it all. In his first of a 3-part lecture about the truth about stories, Thomas King tells us about the power and danger that these stories carry. In his recounting of relationships to the lives of his parents, he gives us these words to consider. Quote, "I tell you these stories not to play on your sympathies, but to suggest how these stories control our lives. For there is a part of me that has never been able to move past these stories. There is a part of me that will be chained to these stories for as long as I live." So you have to be careful with the stories you tell, and you have to watch out for the stories that you are told, end quote. I've come to know the world through stories and through the stories told to me. And this project is ultimately a story about stories and how they're a part of everyday life and how, still messed up the page numbers. And how a story can hurt or heal. Ultimately, the goal is to understand how a story can help reshape our worlds and how stories are magic. It is my hope in engaging these stories reveals insights into the ways in which my experiences are incommensurable with settler recognition, for even the ways in which we actually start the process are being dictated to being surveilled to determine legitimacy. These stories are foundational to my own world building and survival methods. They're tied to the ways in which I know myself and how I make meaning of my life and my momentum in a world that cannot be separated from the self who engages within the systemic structures of school. I utilize stories to animate theory and reveal the invisible tensions and consequences that dictate Indigenous survival and recognition within settler institutions, and enact an embodied politic of care and examine the possibility for considering structures of value that's centered on our lived experience. Through stories, I ask how we can understand the settler notions of art and education from increasingly complex viewpoints and examine social constructions that enact the violence of settler society, on Indigenous ways of being. And so this concept can be further examined through the notion of a name. How we each come to our name tells us something about the world we're brought into. My name is Vi Jones, though it was not always this way. The process of coming to a name that reflected my trans experience was one I found fundamentally rooted in culture. See, it's not uncommon for Anishinaabeg people to have many names throughout their life. This is the nature of transformation, that you are not now what you were before. Naming in settler ways of understanding doesn't necessarily carry the same significance, reverence, or meaning as illustrated by Anishinaabe storyteller and ancestor Basil Johnson, who says that on the surface, giving a name was easy. But before the ceremony could take place, there were days of meditation and nights of dreaming, for a name was not just merely an appellation or a term of address. A name was an identity at the time it was bestowed, and it merged later into reputation. Until named, a child was without identity except to its mother and father. It was no more than a presence with potential and, with good care and good fortune, a future. That and nothing more. Hence, the namer's task was not a light matter. Not only did the namer have to give a name, but he also, by virtue of being a namer, had to assume certain responsibilities for the child. By becoming asked to name the child, the namer was asked to become their second father. Here, even a name takes time. Sometimes years or decades will have come and gone before somebody is given a name. To name someone is to give part of yourself in this way. Basil Johnson says, he closed his eyes as he pressed the child to his chest, and he held the child against him for a long time. This was the most solemn and profound moment in the ceremony. Chiguan was about to give his Quemis a name, but first, he was to give part of himself, to transmit a portion of his own potential to the child. There was no word for this potential, no word to describe its character, no word that could cause it to pass from one form to another. because it was an act that was consummated between two souls. No words were necessary. Touch, flesh to flesh, was the way in which spirits met and became one. By holding his nephew close, Jigwan was letting part of his being enter the child. He willed his dream and his dream power to well out into the child, to form part of the child's being and potential, end quote. Vi Jones Dishnakas. Vi Jones is my name, though it was not always this way. My parents and a doctor made some decisions about a body I was born into, and my mother gifted me a name I would carry for 3 decades. I love that name. I loved the name because she had put so much love into it. My mother had put so much to recognize this part of her heart. So choosing a name felt like a rite of passage. I was going to be able to decide for myself for the first time how I'd be referred to in my waking life. So how could I find a name that still had that love invested, that importance to my family, and something that I could live with? When it came to Vi, it was well over a year of consideration, but I had finally found something I thought I could be proud of. My great-grandmother's name was Violet. She passed before I had the chance to meet her, but I was raised on the stories of her life within my family and my community's love. In both of Canada's national languages, it has meaning. In French, life. English, competition. I felt for the first time you finally had a name that knew what you could expect. And one that still lets that love of my mother carry through, and the love of mothers before her. See, I didn't think of how history can ripple, and that great pain can be carried through time, because from my family's perspective, they saw a child come home unrecognizable, a new name, a shell of a former self. And these forms struggled so much with love that the act of saying I love you audibly became a challenge to an uncaring world, because for a long time we struggled to tell each other how much we actually loved. It is my hope that they can hear that if I'm filled with love, they won't think they've lost another child. Bidabang Digo. Bidabang is my name. In English, I think this phrase more accurately translates to Bidabang is how the spirits know me. And so we use the word Bidabang, but sometimes it's spelled differently, to mean dawn, or the arrival of the morning light, but the word itself is descriptive and explained through Michi Sagig Anishinabekwe Lian Betasamok Simpin, Anishinabek artist Susan Blight, in her book As We Have Always Done. Blight, learning from elder Alex McKay from Kichimakusip Inuak, broke down the word as follows. The prefix be means the future is coming at you. It also means in full anticipation of the future, that you can see the whole picture. Da is the verb for living in a certain place, or the present. Bun, or ba, is a verb we use when something doesn't exist anymore, or someone has passed on. Bida bun, then, is the verb for when the day breaks, the actual moment daylight appears at dawn, not as a prolonged event, but the very moment. My own interpretation of this, then, is that the present is a colliding of past and future, end quote. I received this name in ceremony when I was very young. My brother and my sister had both gone through their same naming ceremonies, and I was very much expected to do the same. In my eyes, in the eyes of the ancestors, they knew who I was already. See, they had known me. They had known me all of my life and from before my life, when I was an ancestor yet to be. And here they called to me. They saw me unable to see myself. They called out my name to remind me who I am. And to receive my name was to be the first ceremony, and I understood that I would enter a sweat lodge with other men and women and walked out with that gift from the spirit world that they would tell me the name they knew me by, and that would give me strength. I did not enter the lodge that had been prepared when I asked for my name. I knew something was wrong fundamentally, and the lodge was not safe for me. And I was experiencing an overwhelming fear. I could not bring myself to step into that room. So the elder I petitioned took me to the door right outside so we could be close as we physically could, to the circle. He offered his tobacco, I mine. He smoked his pipe and we prayed. The spirits in the lodge told him my name and how they had come to know me. They told him to tell me that I would understand this meaning through time and that I should learn from my name, and that each morning I should immerse myself in the landscape physically if I could, in my mind if I could not, because I was a child who never loved sleeping in. I was one of those 7 a.m. babies. Then sunrise for a moment for me was to contemplate stillness and solitude before the world awoke. Here, in the light of the first morning, I learned hard lessons. I learned lessons of grief, where every fiber in your being pleads for a moment of just pause. And you beg for the earth to just stop turning and for time itself to freeze so you can experience just a break. And yet the world spins madly on. It is here in this moment that I understand the fundamental knowledge in what my responsibilities are. I'm called to be bright. And while there may be clouds or rain or weary winter haze that obscures it, this light can still be found breaking through every dusk, every morning. I'm called to recognize the power of hope and the belief in the instant that the sun's rays break through, that the hardest nights too come to an end. Skipping a big section in the middle because it's super academic, and we're going to go into the time where I talk about time. When the last residential school closed, I was 6 years old. The legacy of the Canadian state and its relations with Indigenous people is ongoing genocide until the mid-90s, where the institution itself is shut down. But the logics of power that guide settler colonial governments are in direct competition with Indigenous ways of being to legitimize their existence. Settler society entrenches this legitimization across social frameworks to remove Indigenous presence completely, unless it can be incorporated into capitalist exploitation. It accomplished this through laws, such as the Indian Act, that determine the state's powers and limitation in its enforcement and subjugation and annexation of Indigenous peoples. The sustained assault of Indigenous self-determination through the residential school system predates the incorporation of Canada as a state by 36 years. As of this writing, it has been 26 years since the last school closed. For Indigenous people, this is Canadian history and present. For the last century and a half, we have endured the repeated trauma enacted on behalf of the settler state. The long-term effects of this trauma are unknowable and identifiable certainty for all Indigenous people who want to undertake the healing journey. Quote, being traumatized means to continue to organize your life as if the trauma were still ongoing, unchanged, unmutable, as if every new encounter or event is contaminated by the past, unquote. The body keeps the score. The narrative of traumatic impact is recognized by the settler government as it places responsibility firmly within Indigenous individuals to overcome this imposition or deny its effects. The futurity of Indigenous presence within Canadian society is structured on this positionality, and the narrative of deficiency is proxy to the realities of those who must contend with this historical and contemporary threats of annihilation. Canadian social reality affirms settler futurity and codifies it through an enforceable politic and policy, through government and determining the social policies that each subject abides by. Settler society is predication on the notion of civility as the collective social contract, situating difference as uncivil. At issue here, quote, is the way in which legacies of genocidal settler colonialism leads to a cultural politic in which civility, civilization, and, quote, civil society continue to function as keywords of power. Particularly, there are keywords in which the project of the state, which now has a wedded logic of settler colonial extractive capitalism, is to one of multicultural neoliberalism. They built racialized and racializing allegiances with citizens and civil society. The myth of Canadian civility, the patrimony of a European civilization, and the alleged freedom of liberal civil society all worked to erase not only the decidedly uncivil and violent history of oppression and exploitation, decidedly uncivil and violent history and present of Canadian settler colonialism, but a history and present of racialized exploitation and of oppression of non-white people as well. It also serves to smuggle these violent Canadian traditions into the present under the blanket of a set of unimpeachable euphemisms. These terms often create an often invisible matrix of power that normalizes the economic, social, and cultural reality of a nation still very much organized around settler colonialism, racialized oppression, and exploitation. The violence of colonial civility. End quote. So within this narrative, from the settler perspective, Indigenous peoples are without history prior to 1492. And we're not represented within the conception of a nation's future except as unwilling cultural workers who must overcome the long-term effects of cultural genocide. For me, personally, this manifested as a feeling of demise that made notions of my own future outside of this narrative non-existent. I couldn't imagine what would it be to grow older than 30. I assumed I would just die. Without a future, I thought I had no future, that I wouldn't be able to survive. The scenes that punctuate settler speculative fiction, specifically cataclysmic or apocalyptic conditions, are the social realities that have faced Black and Indigenous peoples on communities on Turtle Island since contact with Europeans. This notion of time is situated within a complex mix of Abrahamic tradition and navigational legacy and hegemony. This construction of time offers a singular interpretation with measurable baseline intervals. This construction of time is incommensurable with Indigenous experiences of temporality that expand beyond empirical measurement and incorporate metaphysical contexts. Time is not a measurement of objective reality. Instead, it fragments, it abstracts. Beyond perception and its limitation in the same notion of multiplicity and generosity in difference that is inclusive and responsive to the non-human elements entwined in relation. Expansive kinship delegitimizes heteropatriarchal supremacy, and it complicates the notion of inheritance and legacy as socially uncontested truth. Indigenous temporalities, or Indian time, are made strange or queered to settler politics and enforced exclusionary differences. Indigenous histories are relegated to myth and novelty beyond settler perceptions. Indigenous conceptions of time engage cyclical understanding from a person-centered context, whether human or not, and conceptualize the living world in a state of constant change and motion. Time is not an interval, but a compression, an interpretation of cycles of experience. We as human beings are attuned to others through our relational contexts, through our experiences, that this attunement spans beyond social reality and across all levels of understanding as we shift between states and cycles with predictable regularity. It incorporates non-human requirements of time. And these cycles are sometimes small, moment to moment, maybe a moment between a breath. Or sometimes they're big. Multi-day fasts, vision quests, seasons, a lifetime. But are not meant to singularly serve as a record of history. Instead, time here activates experiences of participation and collective knowledge. Indian time, Indigenous temporalities are conceptualizations of sequences in motion that invite and implicate individuals who have the ability to perceive time, to constantly shape the future. Inaction within this motion is not static, it's not passive, but a deliberate response in relation. Choosing no response is a response, and sometimes the best response. In this way, silence becomes active. The lack of sound, instead of silencing, is an invitation for contemplation. Quote, "Silence is the test for patience. In silence, two people are still engaged in the same experience of concentrating on the same item or piece of knowledge. And in this way, learning how to deal and function with silence is a mean for securing one's thoughts and confirming one's beliefs. In this way, silence is an opportunity, not a negative. Such silence is uncomfortable to the mainstream person whose world is filled with so many man-made noises. But the opportunity for self-reflection and introspection in the process of understanding one's own mind and finding balance within themselves. Personality is shaped, changed, refined, characters built. Indian thinking. These abstractions of time are intrinsically linked to Anishinaabe Muin, a language situated in verb-based states of being not limited to human perspectives or experiences. Robin Wall Kimmerer examines this relationship in her book, Braiding Sweetgrass, Indigenous Wisdom and the Scientific Teaching of Plants. If you haven't read it, I seriously recommend it. She refers to this concept as the grammar of animacy. So as part of her language acquisition, she's come into possession a dictionary of Anishinaabe translations, and for all intents and purposes, it's linguistically related to her own language of Potawatomi. Much of the words in essence remains the same, but she is overwhelmed by that verb-based language that sees so many things in motion. To be a Saturday, to be a hill, to be red, and notably, Wikwegama, to be a bay. Quote, "A bay is only a noun if water is dead. When a bay is a noun, it is defined by humans, trapped between its shores and contained by the word. But the verb, wikwegama, to be a bay, releases water from that bondage and lets it live. To be a bay holds wonder that for this moment, the life-giving water has decided to shelter itself between these shores, conversing with cedar roots and a flock of baby mergansers, because it could do otherwise. It could become a stream or an ocean or a waterfall. And there are verbs for that too. To be a hill, to be a sandy beach, to be a Saturday. All are possible verbs in a world where everything is alive. Water, land, and even a day. The language is a mirror for seeing the animacy of the world, the life that pulses through all things, through pines, nuthatches, and mushrooms." End quote. Time is understood as the foundational cycles that we go repeating on a regular basis. Such abstractions are tended to be relevant to the being whose agency is being prioritized through the verb usage, situating every related being within relational context to examine patterns that emerge. Time in this notion is generative, a gift which has responsibility intrinsically tied to it. See, the ability to recognize time passing comes with a constant responsibility to be shaping it towards harmony. Cycles of time also provide opportunity for recognition and learning from experiences and peoples outside of ourselves. For example, monarch butterflies have different generational life cycles, with each having its own genetically distinct characteristics based on its location within its migration cycle. It takes several generations of butterfly to take the annual migration towards warmer climates, and often a single generation will make a return journey. Time here is only relevant to the responsibilities of butterflies in each cycle. There's no use comparing. The first and fourth generation will be completely different because they have different responsibilities to attend to. And each part is an overall cycle incorporating several generations. And so butterflies are an example I use to include a notion of transformation, that every butterfly first starts as an egg. It pupates, becomes a caterpillar, a chrysalid, before entering the stage of their life cycle where migration even becomes possible. This understanding and knowledge can have direct impact for communities who are looking to engage in multi-generational paths, only visible to those who are able to recognize those patterns at that level. And so our responsibility is as complex as our context. Each person has gifts, responsibilities, histories. What is possible for some is not possible for others, so what is required is that we do what we know we can with what we have. And personally, I think it a worthy cause is one where we as invested as a society to actively build a future in our present where our experience is honored through reciprocity and reflected in social desirability. I want to see a future with all of you in it. Thank you.
Music. I'm going to sing a little bit. I'm really nervous about that. So first I'm going to... Thank you! So first I'm going to play just like little sets of music. You can move around, move your bodies, dance if you want to, grab a drink if you want to, and then once I'm done my little set, I'll start singing. And it's really up to you if you want to like sit and watch or stand and watch. I want people to kind of do what feels good for their bodies right now. So yeah, that's that. Yes. And I'm Rin Harris, by the way, in case you don't know who I am.
Just pick me up, I'll dance. Dance to the music, dance. Just pick me up, I'll dance. I'll dance to the music, dance. Everybody is dancing. They're out on the floor. Everybody is prancing. They're hollering for more. Now I like to party. I like to get down. I like to groove. I love to move. And I'm ready now. So pick me up, I'll dance. Dance to the music, dance. Just pick me up, I'll dance. I'll dance to the music, dance. When the music's alright, don't feel so alone. There's no need for sighing or staying at home. Just moving my body to the beat of the band. There's no need to fear. I'm glad I'm here. So take my hand and pick me up, I'll dance. Dance to the music, dance. Just pick me up, I'll dance. I'll dance to the music, dance. And pick me up, I'll dance. Dance to the music, dance. Just pick me up, I'll dance. I'll dance to the music, dance. And pick me up, I'll dance. Dance to the music, dance. Just pick me up, I'll dance. I'll dance to the music, dance. And pick me up, I'll dance. Dance to the music, dance. Just pick me up, I'll dance. I'll dance to the music.
the bread out of my hand. Now you wanna know how strong I am. All I can say, lie, 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 you baby. What's the use giving out, giving out, giving in that of sin? Now you're trying to be, you wanna be my friend. Yeah. Gonna love you anyway, no matter what my friends say. Ooh, baby, come what may. Oh, yeah. La, 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 la. That's for sure. I'm a man. Take the bread out of mine. I don't wanna know how strong I am. Hey, I'm gonna keep on loving you, no matter what my friends tell me. Trying to see, trying to find a way through, 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 find a way
You got to show me love. Heartbreaks and promises, I've had more than my share. I'm tired of giving my love and getting nowhere, nowhere. What I need is somebody who really cares. I really need a lover that wants to be there. It's been so long since I've touched a haunting hand. I can put my love on the line. That I hope you understand. So baby, if you want me, you got to show me love. Words are so easy to say. You got to show me love. I'm tired of getting caught up in those one-night affairs. What I really need is somebody who will always be there. Don't you promise me the world, all that I've already heard. This time around for me, baby, not just because you were. Looking slow down. I want you to stay with me, you part of my world now. Baby, you don't gotta hide nothing, cause you home now. If you wanna ride along with me, then let's go. The world is ending, but my love grows for you. For you. Worlds colliding, but think I'll be falling.
a spark inside your soul, reflection of yourself. We all deserve a home. Moving like water, flowing just like time. All the repeated connections, breaking walls in my mind. Stigma just like murder, assumptions so unkind. We'll be moving just like water, hydration and we'll be fine. Stop killing lands and people, and everything will be alright. Yeah, everything will be alright. Moving like water, flowing just like time. Messages from the ether, ancestors on the line. Please don't waste the time. Please don't waste the time. Should we remember it all? This one's given a little bit of Caribbean vibes. It's a little hype, so yeah. Get hyped! Okay. Not necessarily the content, but yeah, the song. Oh, that is way too fast. Sorry, y'all. Sorry. I'm not sorry. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Ever said that we'll make this last work for a cause bearing claws. Yeah, we taught you how to fight, so don't forget it. But you went and then you done forgot what to fight for and what to let lie. So you weave those lies. I'll kiss my teeth and roll my eyes, 'cause you know that I'm playing on your demise. But I'll keep working away, while you flew up on decay. You are rotten, but love will win, built to win, always been. Better get your song or just stay calm. Either way, this is a liberation anthem. Good riddance, no grievance. Maybe if you had some, then you could get some. Good riddance and no grievance. Maybe if you had some, you could get some. Okay, last one. But sometimes you beat in the bush and you whack in the pine. When it all on the line, when it all on the line. Reminder, key is to do it so often. To how to turn away from happiness in a mental state, too tired to
Imagine we are texting. Hey, baby, I haven't heard from you a while. Everything okay? I love you.
Hi, Auntie. I love you too. Try my best. I know the world has always been post-apocalyptic for us, but really at this point, it's like, can it get any worse? But then it does, And, I try to ground myself, but, I don't know if that's possible. How are you?
Oh, I know, Nib, it's rough out there, and also I'm very low on spoons over here. Just know your rage is warranted. This shit is unfathomable, and if you weren't full of rage right now, I'd be worrying about you more. Is there anything I can do?
I appreciate your words, true say. I'm not sure what I need right now. I'm excited for our show. I know it's supposed to be more to the lovey-dovey end of the spectrum, but the anger in my body right now, I just think it'll have to be giving more love and justice because the mushy stuff is just not flowing through me. It's not coming. It's harder to come by in this moment.
I was gonna talk to you about the exact same thing, wanted to check in. Most of my poems for this set are love-based, but inherently, love and rage do intermingle because they are often fueled by each other. So whatever you gotta express, it'll be relevant.
You're right.
I sometimes am. I am such a lot of my life. I am such a lot to be. I am such a lot to me. I am a lot. So much, such a lot, but if you were waiting for an apology, you better put on some comfy clothes, grab some snacks, and get cozy, because you might be waiting for eternity or infinity, whichever is longer. Because I harness my weirdness, and it makes me stronger, because it's a little bit miraculous that I'm still here. The stuff I could tell you would bring you to tears, might knock you to your knees, have you pleading with me to please cease. Though there's always those folks who seem to want a few more details in my story, voyeuristic and hungry for everything gory, but they won't get it, because they won't ever get it, because I'm basically dead set against allowing my pain to be entertainment for whomever happens to be in the room. Sorry, not sorry. Did y'all think that I write for you? That's not exactly true. See, my poetry is my safety valve. My poetry prevents me from punching people who misgender my pals, who try and touch our hair, who ask invasive questions, or invade our spaces, or just stare. You know the one. My poetry is armor that I don, a sturdy, wordy carapace of psychic insulation. My poetry is affirmation that I'm right to persist. My poetry is celebration that I still exist. My poetry is me trying to untwist the dysphoric deceit that still fills me inside. My poetry is my heart and brain opening wide, sprouting wings and taking flight. My poetry is found feathers. My poetry is sunlight, which maybe makes me vitamin D. And I keep that joke in there because I think it's funny, even though nobody else ever laughs. Because my poetry is funny, or it is silly, or it is angry, but it is mine. I mine it. I excavate. I throw my line into the word pool and I wait for the inspiration fish to bite. My poetry is mostly me practicing practical discernment, wrong from right, black from white to shades of gray, or maybe I mean shades of brown, and I do my poetry. Remembers a smaller version of myself. Glass house in a tourist town, in a bad place, in a bad way. I wrote then, I write now. My poetry tells her that we're gonna be okay someday. My poetry was, is, and will always be vital. I couldn't give less fucks about going viral. My poetry articulates my survival. That's called autocorrect. I don't know if the lights are on like a timer or a setting, or would it be possible to like just turn them down a scooch? Would everybody be okay with that? I feel like it's really bright in here. Maybe that's just me. So that poem is kind of funny because I don't know if anybody remembers like in the before times when we were just like all on Facebook and stuff, and you would play that game where you'd be like, write this, and then hit the middle button of your phone 47 times and then post it. And there was just a whole bunch of that going around. That poem actually started, the first 3 lines started as one of those hit the middle button 47 times on your phone. So, Facebook maybe not be good for much, but I got at least one poem out of it. That's not bad. And I do that poem as an opening because I'm really awkward and people expect poets to be like super articulate all the time. And spoiler alert, we are not. We save all our articulateness for the words on our phones. And this is a little poemlet, because sometimes it's fun to write a teeny little thing. It's all poetry to me. No, but seriously, everything I do, see, hear, feel goes into my brain and or spirit and or heart, or maybe I inhale it or ingest it. But right now, I'm writing a poem about how writing poems is everything. Like artists talk about our process, but maybe you don't get that some of us mean that literally. That even though we might speak in simile or metaphor or allegory, in sound and movement and curated fury, we make art our practice because it heals us, because it gives us a place to put all the feelings, because when life has me reeling or is stealing my nerves, I reach for my pen, I reach for my words. This is a little baby poemlet. I made a set list, but I'm kind of bouncing around it a little bit, so that's okay, right? Yeah, thanks. This is called 8 Words. This is not a poem. More like a verbalized shiver born of a meme that just happened to deliver the mother lode of synchronicity. This is simply me reminding me that this is what emerged when realization hit, and before I could even begin to absorb it, I was lit up with a radiant resonance like a sudden ravenous hunger, this 8-word revelation. Be who you needed when you were younger. Be proud. You deserve to hold your head up high, say no, and remember you don't have to justify or qualify. Speak your story. Let the garden of your truth flower, but be mindful that the words we yield, be they tool or shield, have power. Be an example. Be what we don't see on TV. Be worthy of admiration. Be aware you are already worthy. Be it poetry or paleontology, have a mission that fires and inspires you, and do not wait for dispensation to get down to the work that you need to do. Be tenaciously abundant. Practice sagacious self-care. Because as Audre Lorde said, that is an act of political warfare. Because this is no permission slip. Or maybe it is, but only if you flip off the idea that you have to pause for validation, approval, or perfection of flaws before diving into whatever you yearn for deep down. Because time is a river, and it is swim, float, or drown. Some days, all is shadowed, and the path is obscured. And those days dawn dark, and those days become blurred, so be your own anchor. Learn to find your own ground. Know that that which is lost can sometimes also be found. Know that our inner children deserve to live without fear. It's because of their courage that we are still here. Also, before I forget, because I can hear them, after we're done at 10, the drag show that is happening like on the other side of the building, I don't know exactly how to get there. I've just been told that it's called Waves of Change. Yeah, well, they said you should like go out and back in because then you get a bracelet and the bracelet gets you free drinks. I don't know. I just know that because I can hear them going, woo. I promised I would mention it during the set, so everybody'll vouch for me that I mentioned it and stuff. Cool. I just want to take a moment to say thanks to all the folks here at the Khyber, everybody in the audience, my nibblings, for making this space and this evening. It's been really nice. I haven't done a show in a long time, and yeah, this is a really nice one to be doing. Okay, so this is my love poem to my poet family. Reflections. Reflecting on flickers of sparkle hearts sparking, on ember hot emotions sparkling, on rivers of words coursing, including quite a lot of cursing, on stage, off stage. We make concrete stairs our stage. We make arboretum into auditorium. We yell I love yous from the audience and from across the street. We gift each other with granola and cab fare and coffee and one hips and flask lips. We gift each other with sage and sweetgrass and stories. We gift each other with check-ins and text me when you get theirs. We carry each other's bags and baggage. We fight, we cry, we snuggle, we struggle, we sleep in piles. We crush on each other. We try not to crush on each other. We speak our dreams aloud. We smile shy from across the room. We kiss lips, cheeks, foreheads. We call each other poet, nidap, sibling, auntie, friend. We hug like we might never see each other again. Our hugs are our promises to see each other again. Okay. This is 9:43. Okay. This is time for a couple more. This poem is based on a true story. Some dude once told me that my hips could start a war. And I replied, "Oh, honey, that's not what they were made for. Just like bees weren't created for the purpose of stinging. Oh, honey, don't you know anything? I bet you think water is for selling, and sage is too. I bet you think minimum wage is good enough for those you call heroes, but not for you. I bet you don't get that hard truths could use some gentle telling. I bet you always gotta have someone around spelling out the obvious. You think I make a fuss because I feel disrespected? Honey, I'm just being protective. I know where my loyalty dwells. It's with the earth and seas. It's with the trees and shells. It's with those willing to or already going through hell to stand together for all our relations, to honor past and present and future generations. This revolution comes complete with reverberations that reveal the power of these lips, these hips, singing, swinging, bringing forth art. Like art is life. Like a poem or a song can lift us up out of strife, like we can wear our scars, like the stripes on a bumblebee. Proudly, I almost knocked my own water bottle over. Proudly, openly. And why not? Because see, technically, bumblebees aren't capable of flight. So maybe we say, fuck the statistics and systems that say we're not right. This fight is not over. It is planetary. It is everywhere, is what the wind tells me as she pushes past my hair to reach my ear. This I need to hear. You need to hear this. We cannot miss any more opportunities to save ourselves, our babies. We are seeds. We must revitalize, photosynthesize, conceptualize, realize natural justice before the coral and the salmon and the honeybees are all gone. And along with them, all of us. Yeah, makes sad. All right. Probably have time for one more? Yeah? Oh, yeah? Maybe more than one? Do I have anything really? Oh, here's one. Last two are going to be kind of romantic-ish. This is called Feels Like a Poem. If you were here, if I was there, it would feel like a poem. I would feel like a poem, like a glade in the gloaming, your gaze on me, like sunset gleaming, our words a tumbling, bubbling stream, and yes, desire, rising like steam, like mist, and yes, the sweetest kisses and tenderness. If you were here, if I was there, it would feel like a poem. The one where lovers love each other, the one where they discover each other, the one where they remember it's not just lust, it's not just bodies yearning together, but minds and hearts entwined in alignment. If you were here, if I was there, it would feel like a poem, an extravaganza of stanzas. Me a sonnet, you a ballad, a couplet, epic, dirty like a limerick, harmonious as a haiku, a graceful, gorgeous ghazal, an ode to knowing the text of us. I have one more piece, and then I'm going to ask Ryn to come back up, and we're going to do a little thing for you. This one, I just like to tell this story because I think it's hilarious. A few, 5 or 7 years ago, I got asked to do a benefit for a local theater company called Lunacy, Lunasea. And I said, sure, because I really like the women who founded it. And I did that thing where I said yes right away before I asked important questions about what kind of stuff. And so I said yes. And then I said, so is there a theme? And they said, yeah, erotica. And this was pretty early on in my spoken word career. And I was like, really have anything like that. I'm kind of in my angry phase, so I said I'll try. And they were like, it's fine, you can read an excerpt from something else. But what I love about telling this story, what I love about this poem and the story associated with it, is because depending on the audience, when I get to the part where I'm explaining that the theme was erotica, people get really uncomfortable, oh God, she's gonna read an erotic poem right now. And I feel like y'all are cool, but that's not really what's happening, because as it turns out, I can't write an erotic poem on demand, but I did write one of my first love poems, which turns out to be one of my favorite poems and almost always the one that I close my set with. But yeah, it's really, really, there has literally been times when I have been able to physically hear people tense up at the word erotica, so it's just interesting to me. Heart compass. Shh. Do you feel that? Like a seed's crack and burst, or the green leaf that's first to unfurl into the cool spring air. I'm here and you're there, but something's happening. I can feel it tactile, I could peel it right out of the atmosphere. You're there and I'm here, but something is flowing in, growing on, bestowing unto us if we just allow it to be, without the push-pull tension that warps our reality. When our beginning begins is actually up to us exclusively, because if yesterday no longer exists and tomorrow is a shadowy door, the only question that matters is, what are we waiting for? The music is playing. It's slow, soft, and sweet, but the rhythm we're following is the one our two pulses beat through our bodies each time that we touch. How can the most innocent contact somehow create such sensations? I think about it too much, all day, and I'm smiling excessively, even for me, with a head full of Marvin Gaye, I've been really trying, baby. Trying to hold back these feelings for so long. But if you feel like I feel, baby. And then comes the moment when my overthinker runs in overdrive from dusk till dawn, and I'm parsing for subtext and stuff to freak out about, and I feel surrounded by metaphorical baggage and doubt. The urge to bolt begins building, and the exits I scout. But then I remember to breathe again. First in, and then out. And I picture your smile, and my tummy fills out with cartoon butterflies. And momentarily, I contemplate letting go of disguise. No more pretending or hiding our lies, though the latter I've been telling mostly to me, trying to deny what I already knew intuitively, because I may not know lots, but what I do know, I do. Like this, you're special to me, and I am to you too. We could be falling in love. I guess it's potentially true. Whether as friends, muses, or soulmates, that part isn't clear, just that kind of out of nowhere, someone can become so dear and near that I forget about fear. See, in this forest of feelings, it's my courage that keeps me moving forth. My heart is my compass, and it is pointing true north. And if I travel alone, or with your hand held in mine, fingers mimicking ways that our hearts intertwine, by firelight, by starlight, by moonlight, by sun, some connections, once forged, cannot be undone. Even if happily ever after is not where we're going, I'll remember embraces amongst trees while it's snowing, and I'll miss not just your kiss or your smell or your taste, but your love, which brought me back to not letting mine go to waste. Thank you. So I have this thing where a lot of poetry shows are just poetry shows. You have poetry shows and you have music shows, and you almost never have them together, which is a really bizarre thing to me because songs are poems set to music, and poems are songs without music. And I just feel like a lot of times the energy is just so much more enjoyable when you have both. So we're going to end with a little sing-along dance party song. I don't know if there's a lot of Otis Redding fans.
Yeah. Sing it if you know it.
Yeah, if you know it, sing along. Yay!
I don't have my little lyrics. Do you want to sing with me? What's that? Do you want to sing at the same time? Because I don't have my little lyrics.
Oh, she may be weary.
Yeah, you gotta have that iconic the horn. Oh, she may be weary. Us folks, we do get weary.
Wearing that
Same
same
old
old
shaggy
shaggy
dress.
dress. Yeah. But when she gets weary, try a little tenderness. Yeah, yeah. Oh, man,
And this organ.
You
You
know
know
she's
she's
waiting,
waiting, just anticipating
for things
that we
she'll
never
possess. Yeah, yeah. But while she's there waiting, and without them,
try a little tenderness.
That's all you gotta do.
It's not just
just
so sentimental.
No, no, no. She has her grief and care. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But the soft words they all spoke
so gentle.
yeah. It makes it easier.
It's all so easy, babe. All you gotta do, try a little tenderness. Hold me where you want me, squeeze me, don't tease me, never leave me. Gotcha, try a little tenderness, yeah. Got to try, na. Try a little tenderness. Thank you. Please clap more for my nibbling grin because they were amazing. Weren't they amazing? Like, holy crap. Like, I know I'm a biased auntie, but also I'm not. Because none of these people are your auntie, so.
No, they're not. Although I know